Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Good morning. Welcome to EAA AirVenture 2023. This is our ForeFlight Logbook presentation. Thanks for being here. My name is Rachel Scarborough. I'm a product manager here at ForeFlight. I'm also an instructor. I do instruction on the side. And about 2 weeks ago, I got my seaplane add-on. Has anyone ever done seaplane flying at all? We got a couple, few? Good. If you have not, I highly recommend it. It was some of the fun, most fun flying that I've ever done. 100% recommend. And then before we get into the meat of this presentation, I just wanted to point out a really good resource here that you have available directly in your app. It's the Logbook Guide. You can go to the Documents page, and then under Drives, tap on ForeFlight, and it'll be one of the first options there called ForeFlight Logbook Guide. It's got a bunch of stuff in there that will show you step by step of all of the logbook features. Okay, so today's goals. We're going to be going over quite a bit today, but some of the things that we're covering will be how to use Logbook just in general, as well as how to set up your logbook, to customize it for yourself, how to create a logbook entry, what exactly is the currency summary, what are our logbook reports, and then how you can import or export your logbook. And then just before we get into this here, today I'm going to be using an instrument pilot as my persona. So it's going to be covering all the fields that you would need for both a VFR pilot, but also some of the more advanced stuff for IFR as well. So we're covering both sides. And I also have my trusty colleague over here, Kendall, who at the very end is also going to be helping out with some Q&A, and she is on our logbook support staff team. Okay, so we're going to start with settings within Logbook. And first, before we get into our Logbook settings, we need to know where to find it. So tap on that More button in the bottom right-hand corner, and then select Logbook. Now, once you open up the Logbook page, you're going to have a left-hand column that you can scroll through. So you're going to scroll to the very bottom of the page. We've got entries at the top, currency summary, right below that, and then at the very bottom is going to be your logbook menu. And I'll come back to this several times throughout the presentation, so just know where that's at. Our bottom setting here is the Settings tab, so we're going to tap on that. And this is kind of the section where you can customize Logbook to fit your needs. So one of the sections we're going to go over is the Configure Fields. So right in the middle of that page, go ahead and tap on that. And you'll get a lot of different standard fields, and these are what are included in every single logbook entry. So these are going to be displayed if you have them toggled on. If you don't want to see them, let's say that you never use SIC time or night vision goggles. I've got that one turned off right now. You can just deselect it, and then it's going to be hidden in your logbook entry, so you don't have to see it every single time. Right underneath the standard fields there, you have the custom fields. So if you want to create, for instance, since I just got my seaplane add-on, I want to track my aircraft single engine C landings. And since we don't have an actual toggle for that, I'm going to create my own. So we'll tap on Add Custom Field. That'll allow me to enter a name here. We'll just call it ASES Landings. And then you can choose the field type. So for these, I want to count my landings, so I'm going to choose the counter option. And once you're done with that, it'll just appear under that custom fields there. And I'll show you later on where you can see that in the logbook entry as well as on a logbook report. Okay, so now we're going to go into adding qualifications. So this is going to help you know how to set up a certificate, a rating, or even an endorsement. In that logbook menu that we were in already for the settings, just above that you'll see the qualifications tab. Let's go ahead and tap on that. And then in the upper right hand corner, don't get confused with the left hand because there's a plus button up by the logbook header there. We want to tap on the right hand plus button. And we'll have options to enter our certificate. So first thing I want to set up is a medical certificate. And one reason why I want to do this is because later on I'll show you how to do track your currencies. And if you don't set up a medical certificate under qualifications here, you're not going to be able to track your currency for your medical. So make sure that is entered in here. We'll tap on medical certificate. And we'll just enter in our class. For today, we're going to call it a third class medical. Type in the date issued, when it expires, and you can even add in any extra limitations. Yes, sir. Very good question. He's asking if there's a place for basic med. We don't have a separate basic med qualification, but you can enter in, instead of where it says third, you could enter basic med right there. Once you're done, you're going to tap on the done button. And now we've got that all set up here. So we'll tap on the plus button again to enter in another pilot certificate. This time we're going to tap on the private pilot. And since we've got an instrument rating for this scenario, we'll tap on Add Rating and select Instrument Airplane. Again, you're just going to go through, fill this out, enter your certificate number, all the dates, any limitations, and then tap on Done. So we've got both of our certificates set up. And now we're going to go into endorsement. So it's that same plus button in the upper right hand corner. And just as a note here, endorsements can always be seen directly in the qualifications. So we can create an endorsement and then our instructor can sign it, or our instructor can create an endorsement for us and then send it to us. And the list of endorsements will be listed here. So to create an endorsement, we're going to use that lookup button. Anytime we have a lookup button, I like to use those because it just makes our lives easier. We have about, I'd say, over 60 different general types of endorsements. So it's going to give us a huge list there. But instead of going through and scrolling the whole list, I'm using the search bar at the top and just entering a key word for me to find my endorsement type a little bit easier. So at the top, I entered instrument, and we just did a recent instrument proficiency check, so I'm going to tap on that. And each endorsement type auto-fills the description box with a generic description, and you can modify any of the information that's going to be relevant for you. So I've entered in my name, my pilot certificate number, the aircraft I'm using, as well as the date. And then once you're done setting everything up, you can tap on Add Signature, and your instructor can sign it right there. And this is obviously just a test account. Now you can see that my endorsement is set up under qualifications, and I can always come back here to take a look at it. So we've got our certificates, our endorsement set up. Now we're going to look at how to set up a logbook aircraft. Again, under this logbook menu over here, you're going to tap on the aircraft page. Now it's worthy to note that this is separate from the more aircraft page. They don't really talk to each other. So if you need to set up a logbook aircraft, always do so within logbook itself. So we're just going to go through and start setting things up. We've got our equipment type as an aircraft. Our aircraft ID, we're going to enter in there. We'll call it November 98765. And there's that lookup code button again for your type code. So we're going to tap on that. And at the top, I'm going to use that search bar just to enter in my aircraft type, narrow things down a bit. We're going to use a Cherokee. And under the Piper aircraft section, we're looking for a Cherokee 180, so a PA-28 180. And we selected that. Now you can see that a lot of the other fields have automatically filled in for me, except for the gear type. Notice how it's yellow right there with the lettering. That means that something is missing. We're missing some information, and we need to make sure that we fill out everything. If you're missing information here, you're going to be missing information in your logbook reports. So you really want to make sure your aircraft is set up and complete. Now we've got our November 98765 aircraft all set up, ready to go under the aircraft page. And I'm going to go through and just show you quickly how to set up a simulator. So if you have an FAA type of simulator that you can use for instrument currencies, let's say, this is a great way to go ahead and set it up. So we're going to tap on that plus button in the upper right hand corner again, and just change the equipment type. Instead of aircraft, we'll select our specific simulator. We have at our flight school a basic aircraft training device, so I'm going to select that one. We'll enter in our simulator name as Touch Trainer, because that's the name of my simulator, and then the represented aircraft type and category and class. So within the aircraft, there was that yellow lettering for missing fields. Here it is again. And at the top, you can see an exclamation point, and it tells you that you're missing some info. So again, let's make sure that we complete these fields here so it is represented correctly on our reports. And now our touch trainer is under our aircraft there and all ready to go. So we've got everything set up, I think. We've got our settings, our aircraft. So let's get into how to create a new logbook entry. Okay, I'm on the maps page here just to begin with. You don't have to go to the maps page. I just wanted to give you a little context behind this. So this scenario, Kendall and I are going on a flight together. We really want to do the Women's Air Race Classic. And to do that, you really have to know who you're flying with, how they fly, and team up together. So we need some practice first. I think we've actually only done one flight together so far. So this is our practice flight, although we're going to make it IFR. And our route here, we're going to the Ozarks. It's Lake Ozark, Missouri. We're going to have a couple of different stops. One is for fuel. One is because, well, Texas is extremely hot in the summer, and we didn't bring water. Not sure why we didn't, but it happens. And because you're flying, it's already hot in the aircraft, it's already extremely hot in Texas, we had to stop and get water. So we've got a couple different stops before we get to our destination there. And then in the top, you can see under the FPL route box, let me see if I can, highlight it here for you. That one right there. You can see that I entered in an approach. It's the RNAV runway 4 approach by using the procedure advisor. I'm just going to point that out because you'll see why in a second. But this is our route. So let's go ahead and set up a logbook entry here. Now is when we're going to tap on that upper left-hand corner plus sign to create an entry. We'll tap on new entry there and enter in our general information. So starting with the flight date, the aircraft that we just made was the November 98765, so we select that. Enter in our departure airport, which is Austin Bergstrom, and then enter in our destination and our route. One of the things that I wanted to point out here was when you have multiple airports in your route, all you need to do is add a space between the two. So you don't want to add any extra characters, just a space. Next up, we're going to scroll on down to the total time section. And for this flight, we did about 5.0 hours, including all of our stops. As you can see here, we've got some extra buttons that have now populated as soon as we entered the total time. Now it says use 5.0. So it's asking us if we want to use 5 hours for the rest of these fields as well because it's going off of that total time we entered. Just a quick button that you can tap on. Otherwise, if you don't want to use that, you can just manually enter something else. But I'm going to use that because my PIC time was the same. And then I'm going to use the distance it has automatically calculated for me as well. Then we're going to update our takeoffs and landings, which was 3 total each. And then scrolling down a little bit further, we've got our instrument section. So for this flight, we did get some actual instrument. We got 1 hour, so I've added that there. And then we did do 1 hold as well. Under that, we've got the Add Approach button. We're going to tap on that because we know we did an RNAV for a runway 4. It automatically entered in my destination airport there, so I just have to tap on Approach, select the correct approach there, which was the RNAV runway 4, tap on Back, and now this approach has been added to my logbook. Now, we did 2 different approaches, not just one, so I'm going to repeat this step, add another approach, select the right approach, go back, and now I've got 2 in here. But I've got a VOR runway 4 as my second approach, and you know what? I didn't do a VOR runway 4 approach. It was another RNAV runway 4. So instead of tapping on that and going through the whole thing again and deleting it, I'm just going to swipe left on that and tap on delete. Now that I know I did 2 RNAV approaches, I can swipe left on my first approach and tap on copy. Just a couple of quicker tips there for you. Next up, we've got the training selection, but this was not a training flight, so I'm just going to leave those empty, but if it was, we could add those fields here. We can also add an instructor signature. And then right under that is our flight tags. So if you have a flight review, an IPC, a check ride, etc., make sure that you enter in a flight tag, because that's where your currencies know how to track directly from the logbook entry itself. Under crew and passengers, I want to add my friend Kendall to this flight. We'll tap on add person, and it looks like I'm a bad friend because I do not have her in my contact list on this test account. So we're going to go ahead and tap on the plus button sign right there. Tap on new person, and just enter in those fields. We'll put in her name, email, phone if you want to, and then the default role right there. We have different selections. Choose a passenger, and I'll probably have to change that later on down the road because I'm sure she's going to want to fly at some point, but I'm using that as my default role for her. So now we've selected Kendall, and she's going to show up in my logbook entry there. And this is where our custom field comes into play. So the one that we set up earlier is under this section in every single logbook entry. So if I did any sea landings, I could add them here. This wasn't that, this was just a single engine. Land, plane, so we're just gonna skip that section. Next, if we want to commemorate our flight, we had a few really cool pictures. We can add that here to our entry. And that is a picture, it's really hard to see, but that is a picture of me and Kendall on a fighter jet right there. Wish I could say we were flying that, but. And then under comments, feel free to add anything you want there. So I just put that this was a fun flight with Kendall. Okay. Setting up a simulated flight entry is just slightly different, so I wanted to make sure I show you a couple of things here. We're starting the same way. We're creating our entry, but we're selecting our touch trainer as our aircraft. If you want to add in your departure or destination airport, you can do so. For this route, I went from Austin Bergstrom to Georgetown via Taylor. So I'm just tapping all that in here. And if you notice, I swipe down to get some of those numbers. It makes it a little easier. You don't have to go to the number keypad. So I'm not worried about adding total time since this was a simulated flight. It doesn't count towards that, but I'm scrolling down to the instrument section and adding my simulated instrument time, which was 1.0. We'll add in our approaches just like we did with the other entry. So we did an approach into Georgetown. We did the RNAV runway 29. It was a circle to land, so I just toggled that on. And we did one more approach into Taylor. So we're adding the T74, swiping down to get the numbers there for the VOR runway 17. Once that is done, probably the most important field here is the simulated flight field. That is next up in the training section. If you've done a simulated flight, you want to make sure that the simulated flight field has your hours in there, because then it'll show up on your experience report. Okay, so we just created some logbook entries from scratch, but there's a couple of ways you can make this easier on yourself. You can use the send to function. We have a few ways to do this. We're going to start first from the maps page. This was the route that we set up earlier. We've got the FPL, which stands for Flight Plan Editor, up and showing. And then that little square with the upward arrow, that is a send to icon. So tap on that. And then you're going to notice a logbook icon there. Select logbook. This is going to bring your route into Logbook for you and automatically populate some of those fields. So the date, aircraft, all the airports there were populated for me. I didn't have to do a thing. My total time was also added. Here it's saying 4.1 because it is taking into consideration the performance of my aircraft. It didn't know I had a couple of stops, so it was a little bit more than that, but you could always adjust that, make any necessary adjustments as needed. But even the approach was added in there, which is kind of cool. Another way to use the send to function is through the flights page. So down at the bottom here, we'll just tap on the flight tab. And I've got my flight plan open. I filled everything out. We'll just notice the upper right hand icon there. That's your send to icon again. Tap on that and select logbook. And it just auto-populates that information. And then the last way I wanted to show you about this send to feature is from track logs. Tap on the More button in the bottom right-hand corner, and then tap on the track logs page. From here, we've got that Send To button again in the upper right-hand corner. Got a pattern going on here. We'll tap on that icon, tap on Logbook, and then something I wanted to show you here was the track log also has been displayed into my logbook entry. So it's not just a straight line anymore, it's the actual track of my flight. And it has populated some times for me as well because it knows when we took off. So it's got my time out, off, on, and in automatically populated for me. Okay, so let's talk about some shortcuts. This is probably one of my most favorite features, is how to create a logbook entry from a draft entry. In order to do this, we need to know our settings, make sure that things are turned on. So back to where we started, this logbook menu, scroll all the way down to the very bottom. Tap on that settings page again. And near the top of the page, you have draft entry creation. Select that. And here you have two options. So Logbook's going to create a draft logbook entry automatically when track logs are recorded or when flight plans are filed. So you could enable both of these, enable one of these. I like to do the track log option, so that's what I'm going to show you here today. So I've got that one turned on. And one more area that we're going to look at is in the main settings page. So we'll go to the More button at the very top right-hand corner, tap on Settings. And instead of scrolling through all the settings, because there are a bunch of them, it gets a little overwhelming. At the very top, we have that search bar. Let's enter in a keyword, words I should say, because it's plural, track logs. It's going to be two separate words. Now under the track log section, we have the ability to enable the start and stop control. This is going to be a manual control that you see on the maps page. So I'm going to show you here what that looks like. On the maps page, it'll populate over here on the left-hand side an REC for record. You're going to tap on that as soon as you want it to start recording. Then the timer is going to begin. When you want it to stop, tap on it again. Going back to that settings, under track log, the second option is to enable the auto start and stop. So ForeFlight is kind of intelligent where it's going to detect acceleration, and once you have a ground speed of over 60 knots, that's going to start the track log for you automatically. It's going to give you a little bit of a buffer though, so it does add some time for takeoff, actually taxi and run up of about 30 minutes prior to your takeoff, and then it'll add about 15 minutes after you've landed. Okay, so once everything is enabled, you've done your flight, this is that automatic draft that it did for me, and it puts it inside Logbook. So we're back to the Logbook page. These drafts are going to appear in the left-hand column at the very top. So you can see the purple letters there. It says draft from ForeFlight track log. And you can see that I've got one draft request there. We're going to tap on that. And since this is a draft, it does not automatically get input into your logbook entry totals, so you do have to approve it first. We're going to go through here and just tap on the track logs section there, just to show you that you can actually see a full screen version of your track log directly from the logbook page. You can play your flight, tap on the layer selector here, choose different options. If you've got a Sentry or something that gives you AHRs, you can get pitch and bank and really analyze your flight. If you want to speed this up, at the very bottom, we have this time slider here. You can tap on that, move it forward, move it backwards, and kind of go to any part of the flight itself. Okay, so back to the logbook draft. This again auto-populates our date, aircraft, our airports. In this particular scenario, we were just going from Austin Executive, which is KEDC, and we came back to Executive as well. And scrolling on down, our total time was added for us, but you can always make changes. So if it might have added a little too much time, just go back in and manually correct that. It does detect our takeoffs and landings for us as well, but you're just going to go through this whole page, confirm that everything's correct. Once it is, tap on approve in the upper right-hand corner. Then it actually gets added to your logbook, and our times get changed and updated there. So we've got about 39 hours in this logbook account. Okay, let's talk about currency summaries. So currency summaries allow you to track currency based on flight and certificate entries. Each entry type is listed, it's got an expiration date and how many days are remaining for that specific currency as well. And you can tap on each one and get more information. So here I've tapped on the general airplane single engine land, and what we're looking for is within the last 90 calendar days that we've made our appropriate takeoffs and landings, so 3 of each. For the IFR currency, we are looking for 6 approaches and a hold within the past 6 calendar months. Or if you've done an IPC, that also counts for your currency. So the area that we looked at before in the logbook entry under flight tags, if I had added that to an entry, that would get updated here as well. And then the flight review is very similar to the IPC there, where you are needing to add your flight review or your check ride flight tag, and that's what we're looking for to qualify this flight if it was within the past 24 calendar months. So let's go ahead and add our medical so we can track that. We added the medical certificate, but now we want to track it in the currency summary. So we're going to tap on the Add Currency Summary button here, select medical, then tap on Done. It's as simple as that. We already had it all set up, so now we've got our medical and our currency summary there. I also want to add that, I'm just giving you a reminder here that this is where we did set it up in the first place. So we've got the qualifications and then our medical certificate up at the top there. And then I want to add another pilot certificate here to track. So under General, I'm going to select that and select Airplane Single Engine C so I can track my currency for this. We'll tap on Done. And we now have all of our currencies added and are all set to go. Okay, let's take a look at logbook reports now. This is another fan favorite, I think, of logbook here. Reports are a way for you to export your logbook entries. You can get your 8710 of your report or see how far along you are towards a certificate or check ride. At the top, we're going to look at the condensed logbook entry first, or logbook report, I should say. This is a clean, formatted PDF that packages all of your logbook entries, your certificates, and your endorsements in one. So we'll tap on that, give you a little visual here. Here are our logbook entries currently in our logbook, and the bottom two are the ones that we created today. So we've got the fun flight with Kendall and our approaches, as well as a simulated flight up there. On the next page are our endorsements. Again, that's the one that we just created today as well. And then our medical and private pilot certificate. You can export this logbook report by tapping on that Send To button in the upper right-hand corner and mail it to yourself, print it out, airdrop it, among other options. This is the experience report, which includes information about your certificate, ratings, flight times in different aircraft, and includes specifics such as PIC, nighttime, any dual received. And it also shows your simulator times as well. So we've got this down here and the simulator up here. At the bottom of the experience report, I couldn't get it all on one page, but that's where our custom fields are going to populate. So if you made a custom fields, this is where those are going to be displayed on the experience report. Progress towards each requirement from FAR Part 61109 is where you're going to see this in the private pilot ASEL logbook report. So you can see how many takeoffs and landings you've done out of what's required for this, how much cross-country you've done. As soon as you see this green check mark, that means you've met that requirement. So now you know how to get your logbook reports. How do I import or export a CSV file? Well, all of this is going to be done on ForeFlight Web. So you'll need to go to plan.foreflight.com, head over to the Logbook tab, and then you've got the Import and Export tabs on the right-hand side. Yes. So we're gonna select the import, because as you can tell, I only had 39 hours in this logbook that I have set up for this test account. So obviously as an instrument rated pilot, I've got more hours than 39. So how am I gonna import those fields from another, let's say, spreadsheet or digital logbook? I'm gonna come here and just drop that CSV file into that box on the right-hand side, right there. And if I need help with this, I can download a ForeFlight template. Actually, I always recommend downloading that ForeFlight template no matter what, because it's gonna have all of the correct columns and rows that you need to successfully import your logbook. So tap on that. But then if you need even further help with formatting, you can click on this and it will give you a bunch of notes on how to format it exactly. The export function is very straightforward. You tap on export and that's it. It gets downloaded automatically. Okay, let's say that you don't want to enter everything in line by line. It might take a long time to do it that way. If I've got a lot of hours, let's say 1,000 hours total time, I just want to enter things in with a catch-up entry. I can do this 3 different ways. We can enter a single entry by total time, by time by type, or time by aircraft ID. Now we have a really good support article on this. If you have any questions, go to our ForeFlight web page and there's that support tab at the very top. Tap on Support Center and you can just enter in a keyword. You can say catch up, and that article will be right there for you, just showing you how to do a step-by-step catch-up entry. I'll give you a couple of seconds there to capture that. Okay, so let's work this through together, how to do a catch-up entry. We're gonna tap on the aircraft page in the logbook menu and select that plus button. From here, we're going to enter in our aircraft ID because we're doing this by type of aircraft. Tap on aircraft ID, and I've gone ahead and just entered in a C-182 because I've got some time in a Cessna 182 that I want to add in here. So I'm just going to label my ID as a C-182, and then under type code, tap on lookup. We'll find our 182 there, select C182, all our fields get automatically entered, but then it's a high performance aircraft as well, so I've made sure that I've toggled on the high performance. If any of these categories are appropriate for your aircraft, you want to make sure you use these toggles because it's going to transfer over onto the experience reports as well. Now that I've got my 182 set up, I'm going to go ahead and create a new logbook entry, just like we did before. We'll enter in a flight date. I just entered in the date that I last flew the 182. Select our aircraft, just the C-182 here. And we'll go ahead and scroll on down and go to the times section. Here is where you want to make sure all your times are entered in. We've got total time. I did 50 hours of PIC. I've got some night time, just 10 hours, and then I did a little bit of solo as well. So I've entered all my times into here for this aircraft. You can go down and enter any cross-country time, as well as your takeoffs and landings. And this is just to show you how that's going to look on the experience report. So I've got my high performance, total 50 hours, And then under aircraft type, my C-182, and all of your times following that. Okay, so we've added a few new features in Logbook recently. So what is new? We have several things on the web that you're not going to see in mobile right now. One of those things is Part 141 Logbook Reports. So if you go on the web, you tap on Logbook, Reports, scroll down, and you can find those Part 141 reports. We've also made improvements to the condensed and complete logbook reports. They've got a cleaner look. If you had 0 time on any of these sections, we just took the zeros out. So now it's much cleanly formatted. And then at the top, we also added a ground training column. Again, this is just on ForeFlight Web, but it's coming soon to mobile. And then one last thing that is available on web, under the 8710 report, we added the breakdown of the class hours. So that is also not in mobile yet, but coming soon. One thing that is in mobile is the currencies, as we just went through all of that, but it wasn't available on web before. So we've added a currency summary tab where you can now track those on your computer as well. And last but not least, probably one of the most anticipated features is multiple track logs per logbook entry. So I've gone ahead here and made a small video where you can tap on the add/change track log button, make your selections, tap on done, and now you can see we've got 2 track logs added to this one entry. On the map, you've got these little pills. You can tap on those pills, and it highlights specific sections or legs. And then you can also just tap on the track log itself, and it expands it, just like we saw on a single track log. So there are a bunch of ways that you can learn more. Our pilot's guide is one of those, and that's in the documents section under the ForeFlight drive. We also have a video library. If you access foreflight.com/videos, you will see a bunch of videos there. We have a blog as well as a monthly newsletter. So a lot of different ways to get more information. And then you can always email us, team@foreflight.com. Our support team is wonderful and absolutely willing and ready to help you. They're all pilots. So if you have any feedback or comments, email us in team@foreflight.com. So let's go ahead and get started with any Q&A. Yes?
If I make an entry and I enter it, then the next day I discover it's incorrect or duplicate, can I delete an entry?
I don't think I heard that. Can you say that again?
Can I delete a logbook entry if I entered it erroneously 2 days ago and didn't notice?
Go ahead. Thanks, Thomas. You might have to turn it on. What other questions we have?
So, how are you accessing photos from what library to put in your logbook?
How are we accessing it?
Yeah, you can give an example of the photo that you imported.
Yeah, we're taking it from the photo library on your phone. So he's asking, how do we access your photos in Logbook? And you can actually just access the camera itself and take a picture right on the spot, or we'll access your photos as long as you give us permission to through the app.
We look 1 hour ahead and 1 hour after.
Okay, and then we automatically look an hour ahead and an hour behind your actual flight. Here.
So you're asking if whenever you're looking at so you're talking on the side of the entries there, it says in the last few weeks and the last 6 months and 12 months. You can individually search through the people that you've added to your flights by going down that menu where you have the settings and qualifications. You can actually select people.
Bring that up.
Then you can select the person that you would like to see all of your flights with. It will pull up all associated entries with the person that you have selected.
I've got that pulled up here too on the iPad. So the people section.
Yes, so if you go into the menu down there at the bottom, if you want to research any of the entries that you have associated with certain people, you can tap people, it looks like we just selected me. You can see all their information edited if needed. And on top of that, down there under default role, you do have associated entries. So once you select that, it will pull up any and all associated entries that you have added this person to into the logbook entry. Yes, so say for instance you have some paper endorsements, like you were starting a logbook by importing a CSV file, so all of your endorsements are in your paper logbook. The best way to add this back in are to start the qualifications, like Rachel showed you earlier, and then as you can see here, there is photo or endorsement photos. You would actually just take a picture of the endorsement from your paper logbook, and you can go ahead and access your photos and then just add that endorsement into your logbook. And that way you don't have to have them find them if they, it's been a couple of years. You don't have to find their email address and have them send you one. You can actually just keep a photocopy of it.
So I have a photo from years ago from an endorsement or a certificate. Can I export that to a PDF?
No, unfortunately, the photos of your endorsements are not exportable or able to be exported at this time, but we will definitely add that as a future request. Any other questions? Yes.
So the big picture look, I'm building an RV-14. I'm going to use a Garmin G3 axis. I plan on using the Garmin to fly approaches and to load all the JEPs onto that. So, I'm still learning about the Garmin products, but do I need to take an iPad with me with ForeFlight in order to record this flight information, or is that all going to be available on the Garmin and still allow me to import that into my logbook? Do you understand what I'm saying? Are guys flying with ForeFlight but not taking their iPads and their phones with them? I mean, look at the phones.
Most of the time, you do take your device with ForeFlight in order to track or record your track log. There is an option with the G1000 that you can export directly into track log. Which avionics did you say you had?
It's the experimental G3X.
A G3X. I don't think that is possible at this time.
But basically, I need to take my iPad.
Yes, correct.
Get all this information.
Yeah, your iPad or your iPhone will work. Yeah.
You can still always add a manual entry, but it seems like if you wanted to add a track log, that would show your full flight detail instead of just that straight line. And if you were looking for that full flight detail, then you would want to add that track log. If you're just looking to add a logbook entry after the fact, as you don't need to bring your iPad with you, you obviously just need the information for your flight. Yeah. Yes. Just to make sure I have this right, you want to go back and import track logs from your track log page into logbook, okay, just in your history. You,
You can't combine track logs necessarily, but you can add multiple to your logbook entries now. Is that what you're asking, or? Yes. Yes, you can. Absolutely. Yeah, you can go back. He's wanting to know if you can add more track logs to past logbook entries that are currently in his track log page, and yes, you can go back and add them.
So just, he's asking us why whenever you leave the airport, it continues to track you on the way home. A lot of the times if you happen to be near an airport in general and your track log or your ForeFlight is running in the background at the time, it can't actually track you in between or on your way home. We do have that happen every once in a while. If it is a track log that you don't want, if it's just you driving in your car, you can swipe left to delete that on the track log.
Yeah, it's not quite smart enough to know whether you're in the plane or in the car because it's doing that auto tracking, and as long as it detects that acceleration of 60 knots, that's when it's going to start that recording. So I would just close out ForeFlight when you're driving so it doesn't. Yes, correct, yeah. All right, thank you all for coming. Hope you have a great rest of your show.